So we're here for day 3 of the Diving New Zealand National Champs. It's been a great weekend so far.
How are these athletes feeling by the third day, Liam, if they're competing in multiple events?
Yeah, well, pretty fatigued. I mean, not only is a long stretch of competition challenging physically, but also mentally and emotionally. There's a lot going on. A lot of focus and preparation goes into every dive.
It's a big field on this, and one of the things I used to find difficult about diving competitions was going from one event to another, so you'd have to change from doing platform diving to springboard diving perhaps an hour later. You know, different mindset, different technique.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially, you know, coming off if you've just had a really great event, you know, you've got to kind of regroup and focus on the next one, and similarly if you've not...
A rubbish event, you've got to get it all back together.
Exactly, so, and, you know, take that to another level from even during the event, doing the same thing between dives. You might have a great dive or a rubbish dive, and you've got to forget about it regardless and focus on the next one, and that can be quite challenging mentally and emotionally for some younger divers.
Let's see how they go on the 3-metre springboard. The forward 2.5 somersaults and tuck position there. Not a bad start to the event. Just a little bit back from the end of the springboard, but manages to complete the dive. Maybe could show a slightly tighter tuck. Slightly out of the dive early there, but still manages to make it, Liam.
Yeah, no, pretty good start there, and Cameron doing the same dive in pike, so a little bit harder with straight legs. Divers can do either the tuck position or pike position to spin.
Yeah, he spins pretty fast.
Yeah, he's done a pretty good job actually. He's finished way above the board.
He knows where he is too. You can tell from the way that he comes out of the dive.
And here's Fraser, one of our top male divers at the moment. With a big dive back 2.5 pike. That's a fairly new dive for him, and he's really improved in it lately.
Takes strength in order to push the board down to get enough height to complete that dive, Liam. You do that dive regularly, so you know.
Yeah, it's a tough one to refine. It takes a lot of not only strength, but, you know, technique and coordination, and so much practice goes into these movements.
And Luke's doing the same dive and doing it pretty well as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to see from Luke. Luke tends to practice more on the platform and compete on the platform, but he's here on the springboard. And
if he's a sort of a platform specialist, what benefit is there for him to be diving on the springboard as well, Liam?
Well, it allows him to just work on his sort of awareness, you know, diving as with gymnastics and trampolining, heavily intense on awareness through the air, and platform divers will practice on springboard as well, a little bit less impact on the bodies.
Yeah, so there's Arno doing it in with 2.5, and he's also, I would say, probably stronger diver on platform, but not a bad effort on the inward 2.5 off 3-metre there too.
Yeah, nice line there and good entry.
Yeah, and I guess to compete in multiple events gives you multiple opportunities to experience a competition environment.
Absolutely, this is an opportunity for all these divers just to gain as much experience as possible competing, and obviously over the last sort of year or so there's not been a lot of competitions going on, so it's great that we have the opportunity to provide an event like this for the divers, and they can get back into a competition environment. And
I'm sure most of these divers will be looking forward to competing more on the national circuit, and some are moving internationally too.
Yeah, well, I imagine a lot of these guys will have dreams and aspirations towards the Olympic Games one day, and the stepping stones towards that is competing internationally on a junior and senior level, and these guys are certainly on the right pathway towards doing that.
It's a forward 2.5 somersault pike from Kaylee there. Look at the stretched body, just a little bit back from the end of the diving board, but I just love, and I can't say enough, that pike position. Toes, it's like a ballet dancer in the air.
Well, it's textbook, isn't it? Michaeli comes from a gymnastic background, and she's made the transfer to diving pretty seamlessly, really.
Strength, juxtaposing from Maggie there. She is just so strong and so high, and that is just a wonderful asset for a young diver to have.
Yeah, Maggie's just going from strength to strength in the sport and still so young and got such a bright future ahead of her. And as with Fraser, I mean, he's just improved so much over the last sort of couple of years, and this dive from him, making it look easy, and it's not an easy dive. 2.5 somersaults with 1 twist.
I used to really struggle with those sort of dives, Liam. You'd be somersaulting, then you'd sort of stop and throw in a twist in the middle, then you'd go back to somersaulting again. There's really a lot for a diver to sort of comprehend and do all in the air.
Oh, there's so much going on. As with that dive that Arno's just done, a front 3.5.
Yeah, 3 somersaults in the blink of an eye. And, you know, the whole way around he's having to use his visual cues. And, you know, one small mistake and the dive goes wayward.
And he's certainly not made a mistake there. He's nailed that dive, Arno. He'll be pleased with that.
Very good job. There we have a back 1.5 somersaults pike. A blind dive, and we spoke about that earlier in the competition. You don't see the water when you kick out, but she's got the timing and the exit dive pretty well.
Yeah, divers will generally sort of look towards the board, look to where they came from and use that to line up.
I don't think we can underestimate just how important it is to see things while you're in the air. And, you know, one of the things I used to struggle with as a diver was when I dived in an outdoor pool. I was so used to seeing indoor things like roofs and walls, but in an outdoor pool you see sky, and unfortunately it's the same colour as the water sometimes.
Yes, well, often you can confuse the two, and that's when it turns a bit ugly.
Yeah. So we had the reverse 1.5 somersaults, one of the scarier dives. Kick out, just lost of tension in the legs and knees there, probably because he kicked a little bit early. Same dive.
Good kick from Cameron. That's nice and vertical.
So you can see just by kicking a little bit later, the absolutely correct time, and very assertively, he has been able to enter the water almost absolutely vertically.
There's Fraser. You can see how much height he gets off the board. He's missed that one a little bit. That's a new dive for him. He nailed it earlier in the weekend.
But in terms of difficulty, he's a level above some of these other competitors here, Liam. Just an extra somersault or an extra twist on a number of his dives.
Yeah, I mean, Fraser's doing some of the dives now that the top guys in the world are doing. I mean, front 3.5 pike's a big, big dive. No one else in this event's doing that.
But what Luke is doing is an inward 2.5 tuck, and very nice. Nice tuck position. Can't underestimate how important the position in the air is. It's a major part of the dive. Nice pike out. Good stretch and going through the water there. And there's the back 2.5 somersaults from Arno.
That's good from Arno. As we said before, these are all transferable skills to his probably stronger event, which is platform.
He's got a great kick out on the very, very certain and sure.
And that just shows his awareness. We talked about divers use their visual cues. We like to call it spotting. And as Maggie's done in that dive, reverse 2.5, you'll see as she's spinning around, she'll be looking where she's going. She'll see the water there. That's 1 somersault. She'll see it again, 2, and no, she's going to kick up to the roof.
It's a pretty tough dive there, Liam. I mean, how many times a week do you think Maggie would be performing that dive in practice? I mean, she'd do a lot of lead-ups for it, but actual dive?
Well, I would say, you know, probably somewhere between 5 and 20. I mean, she may do it sort of 5 times every session as she's building up to the competition.
Yeah.
Divers will generally do sort of around 50 dives a session,
right.
Some easier, some harder, and they'll change that as they build up towards competition, and they'll spend less time in the gym and more time in the pool. And divers spend a lot of time out of the pool, working on their strength and conditioning, and in the room, what we call the dry land, where there's a lot of trampoline work and somersaults onto mats, and it's all transferable into the pool and situations like this. So
I've seen 2 reverse 2.5 somersaults there. The first from Fraser in the pike, and then followed up Arno in the tuck. Quite different looking dives, but I guess similar transferable skills that they'd be practicing in the dry land before doing it off the diving board.
Yeah, absolutely. They've all got what we call a skill chain, and it'll start from the most basic form of that dive all the way up to the harder form, which we've just seen them do. And Holly there's done an inward 1.5 in pike. So the next stage for Holly would be to add a somersault and do it in the tuck position, inward 2.5 tuck.
Well, as she's quite fond of the platform, she might do an inward 2.5 somersaults pike off the 10 metre.
Yeah, that'll be what she's working towards, and same with Michaeli. That's a beautiful line in the entry there from Michaeli. And she'll be looking to add a somersault and go up towards the 10 metre and compete a reverse 2.5 on 10, but in this event, that's fantastic.
Forward 1.5 somersaults with full twist.
Yeah, and again, I mean, there's still a lot going on in this dive, isn't there? Because not only are you spinning, but you're also twisting. So it's a lot of body control. It takes quite a lot of time and effort to learn a dive like that.
Yeah, and to actually go in the water squarely at the end after you've been performing all those twists.
Absolutely, and these guys make it look easy, but I can tell you it's not.
It's the inward 2.5 somersaults from Fraser in the tuck position. He's doing a lot of other dives in pike, Liam. It won't be long till he does that one with straight legs too.
No, it won't be long. He's currently training it, and it's obviously just not quite ready for competition, but it's great to see Fraser stepping up, doing some of the bigger dives and doing them well as well, as with Luke, as he's just done a back 1.5 with 1.5 twist there. Again, a lot going on.
The arms through, the twist, wraps the arms there. You see one above the head and one slightly below the neck. Finishes the twist and then has to get the arms ready to go in the water. And it is the same dive, and I think I've said on previous occasions that the judges like to be able to compare. And similar standard of dive, but slightly different strengths on each. I think Luke perhaps jumped up a little bit higher. But Arno may be a little bit crisper on the entry there.
Arno tends to have great entries, doesn't he? And so that's the end of the 3 metre for the boys and girls in the Group A, and that was a pretty good event. Good to see some of them stepping up and doing some of the bigger dives.
Yeah, I think that there's been a lot of improvement in these divers over the past year, and can't wait to see what the future holds for them.
And that's Mark Graham presenting the medals, one of our previous Olympians and Commonwealth Games medalist.
Olympian in 1984, right? That's the Olympic dive on some of these medalists today.
Michaeli, congratulations. You were competing in Springboard, obviously, in this event. How do you find competing Springboard versus platform, which is your normal event?
It's a little bit weird. I much prefer platform. Springboard is definitely not my preferred event, but...
Arno, congratulations. How do you find competing Springboard? Platform is the event you do the most. How do you find Springboard versus platform?
I find Springboard much more funner, much better. I prefer Springboard, and I just like it more.
And so we're back with the Diving New Zealand Nationals. We've seen some amazing diving so far. We're here in day 3 and about to see the Group C boys and girls finish up their campaign.
Yeah, but we tired after a busy weekend. But I'm impressed with some of the talent I've seen come through, not only in this great age group, but throughout the course of the whole weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just great to see the sport growing as a whole, and these guys will be watching the older guys and looking at how they can improve and get to that level, and meanwhile competing against themselves. And
Finishing up with the 1 metre springboard, and there's a double somersault forward.
6, 5.5, 6.5.
Landing right on the end of the springboard, completes the somersault and just needs to extend the legs a little bit more. Landing on the water there. Not a bad start.
And here's Ross. He's had a great event so far, winning a couple of events already. Certainly one to watch for the future, I think, Simon.
It certainly is. Not only technically, but also seems to have very good mental strength. And he seems to enjoy what he's doing as well. A good inward 1.5 somersaults for just a young guy. He's very light, but he manages to push the board down well to get enough height to do the dive well. Freya starting off the girls' competition. It's good to see Waikato being represented in many of the competitions over the course of the weekend. So she's done the back 1.5 somersaults tuck, which is a pretty tough dive for a younger. Just hasn't had quite enough time to complete it, pushed back a little bit, so she's quite extended her arms going through the water there.
Yeah, it's a lot to fit in for a young diver, isn't it? But it's good to see her giving that a crack and doing it in competition. And Olivia there with the front 1.5 pike. She's also had a good national so far and comes from a gymnastic background. A beautiful pike position there and nice straight lines through the water. And her teammate Riley, those two train together.
Start off with similar dives, but one in the tuck and one in the pike. And I like the way that she shows a very tight tuck position here, then pikes out of it. And it just adds, some elegance to the dive, and is a nice way to control it.
And there's Carmen doing an inward somersault, so landing feet first. We've seen a few of those over the weekend. The next stage for her will be to add a 1/2 somersault and do an inward 1.5, and shows that that's pretty easy for her already.
I think she's almost ready for that in 1.5. You'll see on that dive there, inward 1.5 is probably pretty new. It's a good effort. Just pushing it back and perhaps a little bit afraid of the springboard a little bit. But as time goes by and he gets more confident, he's able to use the board to get higher and able to complete the dive. Talking about being able to use the board, that is a very good way to push down the diving board. See here, landing in a good spot, jumping up nice and high, and being able to kick out, extend and go in the water.
Great awareness from Ross. There's not a lot to him, but he's obviously got some good technique because he does use that board really well, doesn't he?
Yeah, I've been very impressed. So what divers do rocking on the end of the board lately, and how does that benefit them?
Well, they're just building some momentum up, so they're rocking the board so that eventually when they go to press, as you see there, the board's already got a bit of bounce to it, so they'll get the timing of the board. And a lot of springboard is not only about strength but also timing. So there you can see Riley's just been rocking the board, getting it to bounce a little bit like a trampoline.
She seems like she knew exactly the time when it was going to sort of come back up and able to sort of propel her into the air.
Which is what these guys are looking to do, and that's the technique that they will have been practicing for years already. These guys have been in the sport, and as they grow and get stronger, and they'll have that technique foundation already, and it's only going to help them to improve and get harder dives and finish these dives even easier.
And they're moving on the forward takeoff. How important is it for them to land right near the end of the board?
Well, the end of the board is where it's the bounciest, so if they land a little bit further back, they're not going to get as high, and that's just going to make it harder to complete the dive, and also the judges will want to see you land on the end of the board.
Yeah, having been a judge, I sometimes frightens me if the divers land a bit back from the end of the board. I think they might go a bit close to it, or they're off balance.
Yeah, and it just takes away from the overall impression, doesn't it? And that's what the judges are looking at.
There we have a diver who's kicked out just a little bit early and then had to bend their knees in order to make the rotation. And the same sort of errors occurred there. Now these guys are attempting the pretty difficult back 1.5 somersaults from a young age, and you know, it's very, very difficult to.
Yeah, well, I can remember doing that dive at a similar age and actually being quite scared of it because there's a lot to fit in, and as you've said already, it's a blind entry, so you can't see the water as you're going through the water. So
Yeah, I agree. Overall, a pretty good effort from these youngsters.
yeah, absolutely. And if they can just continue progressing to the same rate that they have over the last few years, I think they could have quite a bright future for the both of those two, Tio and Ross.
It's good to see both female and male divers at a very early age well represented in competitions over the weekend.
Olivia, congratulations. How do you feel about the whole weekend and your performance at Nationals?
I feel like I did pretty good, did my best.
Ross, congratulations. How is it diving in a final?
It's pretty thrilling. I like the thrill of it, like you're up against someone and you're diving against them, and it's basically a battle who gets out on top.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you've had a pretty big weekend. How do you feel about the whole competition, and what's next for you?
I feel really good about the competition. I dived pretty well, I feel like, and next we'll be learning new dives and progressing towards a B list on platform.
Well, thanks everyone. That was an amazing event. We saw some great dives there. I hope you enjoyed the event, and we'll look forward to seeing you next year.